I'm delighted to be here. I received an email on the 12th of October 2015 from a very dear person, Esanullah Ehsan. And he said, "Hi all, we just learned from the bank that we are on a zero budget. Please stop the extension of the Skype program both for the morning and evening. Ehsan." Esanullah is the founder and the director of the Kandahar Institute of Modern Studies, otherwise known as KIMS. It's a school based in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and it's a partner to the Pax Populi people-to-people peacebuilding program. The Skype program to which he is referring is the tutoring program that has been in operation since 2010. Besides being the director of programs here at Bentley University, I founded a nonprofit organization called Applied Ethics, and the main work of which is the Pax Populi peacebuilding program. I believe that along with global warming, war and conflict are really the great challenges that people face today. There is so much war and conflict in the world. It's so destructive, and it can spin out of control in totally unpredictable ways with such devastating consequences. And so I think that it's really imperative that we all focus very much on this problem. Every person, every single one of the people in this room, and really everyone around the world, if they want, they can do something to help make the world a more peaceful and stable place, a more respectful place. In 2009, after having started this program, I made my first trip to Afghanistan, and there I learned of the enormous value if an Afghan could speak English. Their economic income would increase dramatically, but they also gained the capacity to interact with people from around the world in ways that never could happen if they only spoke Farsi or Pashto, the two main languages of Afghanistan. After returning, I got together with the people at the Service Learning Center, Franklin Salambini, who was the executive director, and Sean Hauserman, and we launched what became known as the Pax Populi tutoring program. And this is a Bentley student using Skype at the time with his student in Afghanistan, and this is a young woman over in Afghanistan with her tutor, who also happens to be a Bentley student back then. Since 2010, there's been approximately 200 people served as tutors, and a similar number of students in Afghanistan that have participated in the program. And it's grown quite organically just because somebody hears about it and they tell another person, and then they tell another person, and before you know it, people are contacting and saying, "Can we join?" And they do it. These are all the countries that have participated in the program in one way or another, mostly as instructors. Currently, the areas where we have the active tutors in South Korea, India, and in the United States. And here in the US, Bentley and Purdue universities are the leaders. Purdue has been active in the program for about a year and a half or so, and they're beating Bentley right now in terms of tutors, so come on, Bentley. We also have a very vibrant program, a community in India. There's people in 6 different cities that are very active, and I really think of them as being the spiritual children of Gandhi. These are people that have a heart for peace, a sensitivity to the conflicts and the urgency facing Afghanistan, and a desire to do something there. We've been engaged in about 6 cities in Afghanistan, but currently we're operating in 4 cities: Mazar-e-Sharif, Herat, Kabul, and Kandahar. And when I received that email that I referred to earlier from Ehsan saying that they needed to stop because they didn't have the money to pay for their internet services, then the students at Bentley had to be quickly transferred up to Mazar and to Herat. It was not the kind of thing that anybody wants to do, but we were able to cope. Our partner in Kandahar really represents what is best and most hopeful in Afghanistan. And it really surprised me that such an extraordinary school in such a difficult and dangerous region was experiencing this kind of problem. I mean, they couldn't afford the internet, and I couldn't believe, why would that be possible? The fact is that Afghanistan has entered into a very perilous period. That peril is really affecting everything. In December of 2014, the United States ended its formal combat operations in Afghanistan. I say the United States, but really the United States is leading the coalition forces, and really the whole coalition pretty much withdrew from Afghanistan. There's still a few bases. They're there in a supporting role, but not in a combat role. That situation really emboldened the Taliban to increase their efforts to hit hard at Afghanistan. And when the Taliban and now even ISIS hit hard, well, they don't try to minimize civilian casualties, they try to maximize civilian casualties. In 2015, we saw the most civilian casualties since 2001 when we started having these kind of statistics. Some might say that the Taliban are fighting for their religious reasons, but I think that that's another scam. It's a total farce, and I don't believe it for a second. The Taliban and their fellow travelers are essentially drug lords. They control the largest drug cartel, certainly in that part of the world, maybe in the world. And they cannot coexist with the legitimate government of Afghanistan. And so they are ruthless in defending their terrain, their turf. They also just do not believe in meritocracy or that democracy can respond to because they want to grab power through use of force. And frankly, that attitude is an attitude that's been in existence for centuries, for millennia. And it's only really recently that we've had a kind of a democratic awakening across the world, and the Taliban are simply about a millennium behind the times. Another problem is Afghanistan is a very corrupt country. Transparency International ranks it third most corrupt country in the world. There's a strong correlation between poverty and corruption, and Afghanistan has both of them. It's really entrenched in the whole country. But the new president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, is a former World Bank official, and he, I think, is trying hard to improve the situation. But it's hard to change a country that's been corrupt for such a long time. What we see now is we all know that there's a big refugee crisis in Europe. But probably most people don't realize that the second largest group of refugees is from Afghanistan. And the reason for that is that the Afghans are sick of it. When the Afghans saw that there was hope for their country, and they see that the Americans are leaving and the coalition forces are leaving, and then they see that their neighbors are getting blown up, they're sick of it. I think they're more sick of it than they're terrified, but maybe it's a combination of both. So they just want out. So when Ehsan sent me and said we have no money at the bank, we can't continue our program, basically the problem that he was experienced was reflecting the problem that was across the whole country. They were a victim, just like everybody. Now, the school in Kandahar, KIMS, Kandahar Institute of Modern Studies, is really on the front line of efforts to rebuild Afghanistan, and I think so highly of it. And it's very important for what it does, but it's very important for where it is. Because Kandahar was actually the capital of Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. It's a very conservative region, and really has been a focal point in the conflict in Afghanistan. So I really wanted to go to visit this school because I really wanted to show my support for the school, and I also wanted to see what life was like on the ground. Now, I don't advise that, most of you here. And I wrote to Asa and I said, can you give me a reasonable assurance of safety? And he wrote me back and said he would be with me from the moment I arrived until the time I departed. But quite frankly, he couldn't really guarantee my safety. He did tell me that on the bright side, there was far fewer roadside bombs. And he said the Taliban had pretty much switched their tactic to targeted assassinations. And to avoid that fate, because he's heading a school that is probably not at all liked by the Taliban, he likes to vary his route to work every day. And so I thought, well, there you go. Okay, let's make this happen. So there I am at Kandahar International Airport. I got into a taxi, and we exited the airport, and I saw this truck here. This is the weirdest looking truck I've ever seen in my life. This is an American military truck, and it's full of all sorts of sensors and radio jamming things, basically so that the IEDs, the roadside bombs, wouldn't work anymore because it shuts down all the cell phone communication, the radio communications in its periphery. But then there's something else that I saw which was really interesting. This junkyard went on and on and on and on. And it wasn't just like this. It was stacked up high, way high. And it was all the materiel that had been brought in by the coalition forces. And then when they decided to get out of Afghanistan, it's like they left their junk behind. And it's really certainly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, or at least originally, if not billions. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was billions, given the amount of money that we spent in terms of the military operations there. And then when I was in Kandahar, I went and visited a community, and it was behind the fortified walls of the United Nations, protect the people, and they had a very engaging kind of debate. They certainly don't hold back. It was really. And then I went to see the NGO where they provide employment for Kandahari women. They're very adept at embroidery and sewing, and they're making clothing, and they're making decent money for that place. The real reason why I went there was to see the school. So as we were driving to the school, Asan looked ahead and said, "Hey, that's our bus." He said, "You want to get on it?" And I said, "Of course." So he called on the cell phone, and the bus pulled over. And I went forward, and I entered the bus. And all the women in the bus were like shocked. What in God's name just happened here? Who is this guy? And so they all put on their burqas and their scarves. I love this picture. It's my favorite picture of my trip because they were all looking so curious, like, who is this guy on the bus with us? But interestingly, I sat down, and the first person that I sat down and started speaking to is actually a young woman who was in our tutoring program. And I believe she may have actually worked with one of the Bentley students. And the bus drove along, and then finally it got to the gate of the school. And going through that gate was like going into a different world. It was a world of hope, a world of greater peace, security, opportunity. It gave them a different look on life. And there are about 1,400 students in this school, for both men and women, but there's really, female education is really what motivates Asan for doing this. And so you see all these boys, but it's very clever because the Kandahari and the people of that region, they wouldn't spend money to send their daughters to school, but they would spend money to send their sons to school. So the boys are being charged tuition, and the girls, they go for free. He has 800 female students and 600 male students. And they were so impressive. Really, I can't tell you how touching it was to see them, how focused and dedicated and enthusiastic they were. Here at Bentley, we pride ourselves on our technology. And when we come here, we get a new laptop, and we've got great Wi-Fi and everything. Well, this is the Academic Technology Center for the Kandahar Institute for Modern Studies. That gentleman, Qasim, he is the entire department. And this is his office, and this is his part, and this is what he keeps the technology going for the whole school, 1,400 students. And you know, it's kind of humorous, but it's also just so admirable because this guy's got so much dedication. And you know, when the people participate in the program, it's not perfect, and they'll run into problems. And I should actually give this picture to everybody who participates in the program because that's what we're dealing with, you know, and God bless him, you know, he's trying his best and doing a darn good job. I went into one of the computer labs, and lo and behold, there was actually somebody that was working with the program, Pax Populi Academy. When you stepped outside the school, there was a big courtyard, and it was jam-packed with vehicles, because those were the vehicles that brought the young women to the school. And the women went in the morning, and the men went from the afternoon to night. In the evening, these are the bicycles. The boys didn't get transportation like the girls. For the boys, it's not as dangerous. For the girls, it's just simply impossible. They could never walk on the streets to go to school. They couldn't ride a bicycle. But the boys could ride a bicycle. I spoke to many classes there, and they asked me a number of questions, but there was one question that really kind of stuck with me, which is, can you get us more teachers? And of course, I'd love to do that, but we're a small organization, and we have no employees. It's just all volunteers. We have volunteer coordinators that make this whole thing happen. But my answer was, I'll try. But certainly the desire and the need was there. Afghanistan situation is certainly grave. Everybody knows it's grave. But I really do not believe it's hopeless. I believe that there is a new Afghanistan struggling to be born. Even in Kandahar, It's being nurtured through education and economic development and led by a young generation who really see the world very, very differently than their parents. There's more and more of them have like smartphones, and they're like all young people, they're really good with it, So they are doing things that were unimaginable by their parents. Not only that, but the president of Afghanistan, he is a very forward-thinking man, and his wife is actually Lebanese. He thanks her when he took the oath of office, and she is out there speaking publicly, which is really unheard of. And she announced recently that Afghanistan is going to open its first women's university. This was inconceivable not long ago. If you go to an area that I went to before called Bamiyan, it even has its own ski club. It doesn't have any kind of rope lift or anything, but they do have donkeys. So again, you make do with what you can. Afghanistan is in the top 10 for cricket. That's pretty amazing for a country like Afghanistan. This is a young photographer, and I just love his work. These are images of Bamiyan, an area I went to, and they're so beautiful. He has an eye. Look at this. Isn't it amazing? This is really Afghanistan. This is the Afghanistan nobody ever hears about, and it's inspirational. This young woman participated in our program. Her name is Shabnam. And I showed you a screen that said Pax Populi Academy. I asked Ehsan, could he recommend anybody that would be tech savvy to help test it as we were sort of trying to roll it out. And she volunteered because she loves technology. She wrote, "My goal after I finish my education is to help my country and share my knowledge. The thing I am really hoping for is to be someone who makes the world a peaceful place for its residents to live in without any fear." And speaking about her experience with her Pax Populi instructor, she said, "My instructor, who was a magnificent woman in India named Kirti Jayakumar, my instructor isn't only my teacher, she is my sister, and she surely helps me a lot to seek my goals." Shabnam just entered Kandahar University a few months ago, and she entered in the faculty of English literature. So I think we helped her somewhat. And where is she going to go after that? She wants to be a software engineer. For an Afghan woman to say she wants to be a software engineer, people never heard things like that before. But she will do it. I had to leave Kandahar, naturally. I only had a short time there. And for security reasons, cars are not allowed inside the airport. So Ehsan had to drop me off outside the airport, but he wouldn't just sort of drop me off and say good luck. So what he did is he went and he found this gentleman, a soldier. He says, "Accompany my friend Bob McNulty to the check-in counter." And so this soldier didn't know who Ehsan was, didn't know who I was, but he very dutifully accompanied me and made sure that I didn't make any wrong turns, because it's not the kind of place where you want to make a wrong turn. And as I was flying over the mountains, gorgeous mountains, I kept thinking about what I had just seen. And I thought about that military convoy when I first arrived. And then I also thought about this giant junkyard that went on forever. It was the detritus of this long fight. And I asked, what are our priorities? And it just seemed to me that we put so much emphasis on a military solution when we really should have been helping schools like Ehsan's and helping those young people. So I really felt that our priorities were not bad, but really somewhat reversed. And I thought about the email that he told me was at a zero budget. But I had some good news, which is that on the 12th of January, he sent me another email, and he said that he had received a very generous donation from a private individual, not from a government, but from a private individual, that was basically going to see them through. And he said, "Tomorrow, hundreds of vulnerable Kandahari will be celebrating the news as their studies, for which they are dying to receive, were in critical situation. Now there will be a hope. Now there will be a hope." This was on International Women's Day. International Women's Day in Kandahar last March. 300 women from his school graduated. And there were 900 women there to celebrate their graduation and to celebrate International Women's Day. And there was many officials there. Afghanistan is changing, thanks to this man, but thanks to the people of Afghanistan. It's thanks to these young women that actually had the courage to go on that bus, because I'm sure that they were feeling very nervous. They should be nervous. There's been all sorts of examples of, we all know Malala got shot for being an advocate for education. Women have got acid thrown in their face for being advocates of education. But they get on the bus and they go to school and they're working hard. And these young men ride their bicycles at night in the streets of Kandahar. And I find them to be extremely inspirational. Now, who will bring peace to Afghanistan? We cannot do it for them. It's up to the Afghan to bring peace to their own country. But I think we can and should lend them a hand. And it's in our own interest to do so. So I am not prepared in any way to give up on Afghanistan. I think that we should stay there and help them as much as we can. I believe in these people, and I know that they want to help improve their country. And I think we need to leave it to the Afghans then to open a new door for themselves and create a new future for themselves. But where we can, to give them a hand. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.